"You've got to be kidding me," Corporal Jenkins murmured under his breath as he tightened his grip on the cold steel of his bolter. The horizon was a churning maelstrom of dust and fire, the once distant rumble of war engines now a deafening crescendo that shook the very ground beneath his boots. "We're gonna be in the thick of it before we know it." The sergeant's voice crackled over the Vox, a firm, unyielding presence amidst the chaos. "Hold the line, men. The Emperor's light is with us today. Remember your training." The words echoed through the Voxcasters strapped to their shoulders, but the young Space Marine's heart was already racing faster than any reassurance could match. This wasn't like the training simulations, where the enemy was a faceless blob of pixels to be shot down without a second thought. This was real. The air was thick with the scent of ozone and burning metal, a cocktail of fear and adrenaline. Jenkins took a deep breath, the heavy scent of his own sweat mingling with the acrid stench of battle. He looked to his left and right, at the faces of his brothers in arms. Each was a tableau of stoic resolve, painted in the grime of combat. They had all seen this day coming, had all sworn an oath to defend humanity against the horrors of the galaxy. But as the first wave of Xenos monstrosities crested the hill, even their iron will seemed to waver. The bolters roared to life around him, a symphony of fire and fury that seemed to hold the alien tide at bay for a moment. He squeezed the trigger, watching as bolts of ceramite tipped death streak towards the enemy. Bodies fell, but for every one that dropped, two more took its place. The Xenos were relentless, a never-ending tide that seemed to feed on the very essence of fear and despair. Above the din of war, a new sound pierced the air. The skies darkened as a squadron of Thunderhawks descended, their engines screaming a warcry that dwarfed even the cacophony below. The Space Marine's eyes lifted briefly to the heavens, finding a moment's solace in the sight of their Astartes brethren. The drop pods released, and more of the Emperor's finest rained down upon the battlefield. The Xenos faltered, their alien psyches unable to comprehend the fury that now descended upon them. The battle was joined in earnest. The clang of steel on steel, the roar of engines, the cries of the dying, it was all a blur to Jenkins as he fought not for strategy, not for glory, but simply to survive. Each swing of his chainsword, each shot from his bolter, was a silent prayer to the Emperor. The world had turned red, his vision narrowed to a pinprick of rage and determination. And as the enemy pressed closer, he knew that today would not be the day he fell. The Space Marines around him fought with a ferocity that seemed almost superhuman, a testament to their genetic enhancements and rigorous training. Jenkins saw one of his comrades, Brother Castellanos, leap into the fray, his power fist crushing the skull of a hulking creature that had breached their defenses. The creature's green blood spattered the ground, and for a brief moment, the Xenos' charge stalled. But the respite was fleeting. More monsters poured over the hillside, driven by an unseen, unspeakable force. In the heart of the battle, a figure emerged, clad in gleaming armor that shimmered with the power of the warp. Jenkins' stomach twisted in fear and revulsion. A Chaos Space Marine, a traitor to the Emperor, had come to claim the souls of the faithful. His eyes burned with a malevolence that seemed to scorch the very air. The Xenos parted before him, as if in reverence. The traitor's power was palpable, and the Space Marines around Jenkins took a step back, their fear momentarily overwhelming their discipline. The Chaos Lord raised a hand, and the very air crackled with energy. The ground beneath them trembled, and the sky was rent with lightning. The sound of 1,000 souls screaming in torment filled their ears. The bolters fell silent as the Space Marines braced for the onslaught. But amidst the chaos, Jenkins heard another sound, the steady, rhythmic chant of his brother's prayers to the Emperor. It grew louder, filling him with a newfound strength. With a roar that seemed to shake the very fabric of reality, the Chaos Lord charged. And with a roar to match, the Space Marines of the Ultramarines chapter met him, their weapons raised in defense of mankind. The battle had become a test of wills, a struggle for the very soul of the galaxy. And as Jenkins stepped forward to meet his fate, he knew that no matter what happened next, he would not be forgotten. His name would be etched into the annals of the chapter's history, a tale of courage in the face of unspeakable evil. The traitor's weapon, a massive chain axe that dripped with the lifeblood of 100 worlds, swung in a wide arc aimed to cleave Jenkins in two. Time slowed as he raised his storm shield to intercept, feeling the tremendous weight of the blow. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through his body, but the ancient technology held firm. He countered with a strike from his own power sword, the blade singing a song of purity as it clashed with the corrupted weapon. Sparks danced in the air, a silent ballet of steel and hatred. Around them, the tide of battle surged and ebbed. Xenos and Loyalists alike were caught in the maelstrom, fighting and dying in equal measure. The Thunderhawk squadron continued to rain hellfire upon the enemy, their pilots' precision a deadly ballet that painted the landscape with fire. The Space Marines had been bolstered by the arrival of their brethren, but the enemy was relentless, driven by the dark gods of chaos. Jenkins felt his strength waning, each blow from the traitor's axe pushing him closer to the brink of defeat. Yet the chant of the Emperor's name grew louder in his mind, a beacon of hope that spurred him on. He pushed aside his fear and doubt, channeling the very essence of the warrior he had been bred to be. His sword arm grew heavy, his movements sluggish, but he knew that this was his moment. The fate of the battle hinged on the edge of his blade. With a final, desperate surge of strength, he brought his sword down in an arc of light, aiming for the Chaos Lord's unarmored neck. The traitor's eyes widened in surprise, his own weapon momentarily stalled. But it was too late. The power sword sliced through flesh and bone, a silent testament to the power of the Emperor's will. The head of the Chaos Lord tumbled to the ground, and with it, the unholy energy that had driven the enemy's advance dissipated. The Xenos wavered, their morale broken by the loss of their unholy leader. The Ultramarines took advantage of the sudden shift in momentum, pushing the enemy back. The sound of bolters firing in unison grew louder, a symphony of redemption that rang through the air. As the dust began to settle, Jenkins looked around, his heart swelling with pride. They had held the line. They had fought against impossible odds and emerged victorious. The battle was not yet won, but the tide had turned. The light of the Emperor had pierced the shadows of chaos, and the galaxy would be a brighter place for it. And as the Space Marines regrouped, preparing for the next wave, Corporal Jenkins found himself at the center of a circle of his brothers. They looked upon him not as a mere mortal, but as a hero. A beacon of hope in the eternal war. He knew that this battle would not be his last, nor the most significant of his life. But for now, in this moment, he had done his part. He had fought in the name of the Emperor. The Vox crackled to life again, the sergeant's voice now filled with a mix of relief and pride. Well done, men. The enemy retreats. We've bought ourselves some time. The words were met with a chorus of battle cries, echoing across the scarred battlefield. The Space Marines knew that this was only a temporary victory, that the war against the Xenos and the traitors of chaos would never truly end. But for now, they had earned a brief respite. The sky grew darker as the Thunderhawks circled for extraction, their engines a mournful lament for the fallen. The surviving Ultramarines began the grim task of collecting the bodies of their slain brothers, each one a testament to their unwavering loyalty to the Emperor. Jenkins helped load the last of the drop pods, his thoughts a whirlwind of emotion. He had killed today, taken the lives of those who sought to bring darkness to the galaxy. Yet in the end, he had also saved lives, his own and those of his comrades. As the engines of the Thunderhawks roared to life, drowning out the final cries of the dying, Jenkins took one last look at the battlefield. The once pristine landscape was now a tableau of destruction, a canvas painted with the blood of heroes and monsters alike. He knew that this was a sight he would never forget, a reminder of the price they paid for the survival of humanity. The drop pods lifted off, leaving the battlefield to the silent testament of war's aftermath. But as they ascended, leaving the planet's surface behind, the light of the Emperor shone down upon them, a symbol of the ever-watchful eye that guided their path. And in that moment, Jenkins felt a newfound sense of purpose, a renewed commitment to the endless crusade. For the battle was over, the dead were mourned, but the war went on. And as long as the Emperor's light burned within their hearts, they would fight on. The story of this battle would be told and retold, inspiring future generations of Astartes to stand firm in the face of the unspeakable. And so, the cycle of war in the 40K universe continued, a never-ending tapestry of valor and sacrifice, woven by the indomitable will of the Space Marines.